I told her, I was like, if there's anybody on your staff that wants to have like a conversation talking about ADHD, let's do it. Let's have them on. And you're the first one. You're the first Shimmer coach to come and speak with me. So I'm excited to have you.
Yeah, huge honor. Chris knows I can talk. Chris knows I'm happy to have a conversation at any point over the past few years. We've gotten really close, and she
Yeah.
knows. Just let me talk about it.
Hey there, Vibers. Welcome to the Vibe with Kai podcast, where we keep it real, we keep it relatable, and we keep it a little bit funny as we dive into all things mental health, ADHD, and introversion. My name is Kai. I'm your host, and each week we're going to tackle life struggles with honesty, humor, and a whole lot of heart. So whether you're here for practical advice or a little validation or just a laugh about what life is like as an adult in today's world, listen, you are in the right place. We are not about toxic positivity here. We are all about being genuine to each other and to ourselves. And we're talking about real things. And we want to encourage each other and remind you that you are not alone. With that said, my friends, sit back, relax, and let's vibe through this together and enjoy today's episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast.
What up, Vibers? It's your boy, Kai. Welcome to another episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast. In today's episode, we're diving deep into everyday challenges of ADHD, things like building habits, setting goals, and actually following through without getting sidetracked by everything. And to help us out, we've got the perfect guest, Coach Alex Bellitter, the coaching operations manager and the lead ADHD coach at Shimmer ADHD Coaching. Alex oversees a team of 45 ADHD coaches, helping people just like us navigate the chaos of daily life with practical, science-backed strategies. If you've ever felt overwhelmed, stuck, or unsure where to start, then this episode is for you, my ADHD family. I want to welcome our guest, Alex, Coach Alex, to the podcast. What's going on, Coach Alex?
Hey everyone, it's great to be here. I'm
Yeah.
so excited for this episode. It's one of my favorite topics. I
Yeah.
talk about it every single day, so really happy to have an opportunity to talk about it some more.
No, this is perfect. We had on one of our more recent episodes, we had Chris Wang on the episode, who was the founder of Shimmer ADHD Coaching, and it was such a wonderful conversation. And I told her, I was like, if there's anybody on your staff that wants to have like a conversation talking about ADHD, let's do it. Let's have them on. And you're the first one. You're the first Shimmer coach to come and speak with me. So I'm excited to have you.
Yeah, huge honor. Chris knows I can talk. Chris knows I'm happy to have a conversation at any point over the past few years. We've gotten really close, and she
Yeah.
knows. Just let me talk about it. I love
Yeah.
it. So,
No,
and
it's perfect.
she's great.
No, that's perfect. And I'm so happy to have your insight, and I know my audience is going to love it. So I want to start off by asking, just a little bit about you and your personal journey. What led you to become an ADHD coach? What was that personal journey like for you?
Yeah, I would say I have a pretty untraditional journey into ADHD coaching. So,
Hmm.
I originally got my master's of science in psychology. And during that journey, I saw myself going more into like the therapy route. And I really wanted to help people, given my own personal journey with different diagnoses. And it just didn't really feel quite aligned. It
Sure.
did feel like it really ruminated on a lot of things that were really hard for people to go through. And there is a great place for the therapeutic world. So many people get great help, but there was like a rut happening where it's like, well, where do we get to the fun things? Where do I get to grow? Where do I start flourishing? And that's really when I found coaching, which was all about this idea of a wellness vision, this long-term potential of who I could be, and like this life that could be exciting and fun, and it could be playful. And I was like, that's the conversations that I love to have. So that's when I transitioned into mental health coaching. And in mental health coaching, what I found was most of the people were neurodivergent, and it felt like they were kind of just falling into this mental health bucket because there wasn't the right resources. Well, I guess I'm just going to be working on anxiety, or I guess, you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
sort of where people ended up, because resources for like neurodivergent folks, ADHDers, autistic, like they're just not easily accessible. So you kind of end up in the mental health field where you see a lot of people going to therapy and they're like, that's just not really what I want. Like,
Sure.
that's not really the conversation I'm looking for. And in mental health coaching, it really wasn't the service that it could be. So that's when I transitioned into ADHD coaching, really diving deeper of, okay, well, what is neuro-inclusive support? What is really needed to help ADHDers? And my husband has ADHD, so I was there throughout his diagnosis journey,
Yeah.
what his support looks like. And I had the privilege of working with an incredible supervisor who oversaw all of my learning to make sure that I was doing it in the best possible practices with best like evidence-based tools. So that's how I really got into ADHD coaching, is trying to recognize like, okay, there's a lot of people that don't have the right supports. I need to become that to be able to better support, my own husband, be able to support all my loved ones in my life that are also neurodivergent. And that's sort of the arc of my first introduction to ADHD coaching. A long story, but a great journey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't think that it's funny. I've interviewed so many people. I can promise you that is not a long story. I've had people tell long stories on here before. That was actually that was the perfect length. So good for you for that.
Yeah, I was trying to
that was
speak a little
perfect.
faster. I was like, man, you're talking quite a bit.
No. It's perfect. It's perfect. It's ADHD is so much more than just like quote trouble focusing, right? It's so much more than that. In your experience, what are some of the like overlooked challenges that you find people have when it comes to ADHD?
I would say a lot of things. The
Yeah.
reason I'm going to say that, because a lot of people's first introduction to ADHD, not just those who are ADHD, but just in general, broad society, is the DSM, where you're just saying distractibility, impulsivity, inattention. And the context of that is missing. What does that mean for my parenting? What does that mean for my partnerships? What does that mean for my career? And I think the context gets lost. There's so many conversations when I'm working with my coachees where that's ADHD. Like that's what comes out. And they're like, I never thought about it in that way. So there's all these moments throughout the day that aren't recognized as part of the lived experience of having ADHD. And it gets passed off as, oh, you must not care. You're not paying attention. This isn't important to you. And because it's not coming out as my attention is completely somewhere else and I've gone off on a tangent, but it's more like I've drifted in the conversation. It seems more passive. So people have a very rigid idea of what it can look like. And I think that just creates a lot of miscommunication. And even like an internal narrative that's really negative of, because it's not recognized, there's not quite that self-awareness yet. And that's nobody's fault. It's nobody's fault that they're not quite aware of how ADHD presents quite yet. It comes off like there's something wrong with me because it's not presenting in this very typical, maybe even exaggerated way.
Mm-hmm. One of the hardest things about and you were kind of talking about this a little bit before we started recording about being a creature of habit, right? And we were talking about having, our like I'm a Mac lover. You are not a Mac lover. It's okay. We'll let that slide today, Coach
I don't know why
Alex.
you announced it to everybody.
Now everybody needs to know. No, like, but one of the hardest things about ADHD is building and sticking to habits sometimes. For anybody that's listening right now, that maybe struggle with that, what is a go-to strategy for helping someone who actually wants to keep a habit going, like enjoying MacBooks a little bit more than PCs?
Yeah, and habit building is hard. That's the first thing I want to say. Is there's tons of books on habits, and they're going to be like, here's your 4-step plan to having a perfect habit. It is not that linear. Habit building is not linear. I wish I had this is the formula and you will be successful for the rest of your life. However, there are things that are more successful than others. So when we're looking at habits, there's kind of two different things to be considered. One is it needs to be structured enough, you know exactly what you're doing. The more decisions you have to make, the more you can get stuck. Oh, well, I don't have a super clear plan. I can get to it later. So it's got to be clear enough. But on the other hand, if you get a little too rigid, so my habit is going to be to stretch for 20 minutes. I don't have the energy to stretch for 20 minutes that day. Well, can't do 20 minutes, so I'll start again tomorrow. There's this spectrum when it comes to habit building where you got to hit the sweet spot, which is so hard.
Yes, it's so hard, Coach Alex.
So hard.
It's so
And
hard.
that's where the self-compassion comes in.
Yeah,
Okay, I have to know exactly what I'm doing, But I also have to have this level of flexibility to make sure that as my energy changes, I can still commit to it. Because we know with ADHD, energy fluctuates pretty significantly, and it can be hard to be on it one day. People talk about hyper focus mode where they're like, 10 hours, I did 3 weeks worth of things, I feel great. And the next day, I'm done. I'm in bed. That was too much. What you're capable of doing on those 2 different days is a little bit different, and that
I
makes
feel
sense.
personally attacked right now, Coach Alex. I feel personally attacked. I know. I know. I'm listening to you. I listen to you, and I'm like, this is everything you're saying is so relatable and true. And I'm like, because there's one of the things that I'm struggling with right now, that I've gotten better at because I've been working on it with my therapist. But it is because I used to work out all the time, right, all the time, and then I ruptured my Achilles, and I had to go through my recovery for that. But ever since then, I just haven't been getting back to the gym as much as I want to, and becoming a creature of habit to going to the gym again like I was back in the day. It's been such a difficult journey for me. It has been so hard because I want to do it. I think about it all the time, and I have this passion for it, but just to push that start button is like next to impossible sometimes. It just seems legitimately impossible. It's like I have this goal, but this goal is like overwhelming my brain, and I'm like, how can I keep pushing forward when I just feel so overwhelmed with this inability to get started? And I know there's other people out there that are listening that I hear stories from that can relate to that. Is that something that you hear a lot from the people that you coach?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a misconception where it's like, well, if you want it, you'll just do it.
Mm,
And like that's not the case at all. Like there is a level of like activation energy of what actually one is biologically needed to be able to do that. Like I have to have the energy to do it. I have to be mentally present to do a task. But also um there's the psychological piece of like you said, and I don't want to speak for your journey at all, but it sounded like it was incredibly important to you. Like this
yeah.
was a staple of your life, a pillar of it. It's missing now. There's this gap that happened of this is who I was. Now my identity feels different. What am I going to face when I go into the gym? Um, there are a lot of barriers with that. And it makes sense that like, okay, there's so many factors that go into stepping in and like picking up a weight or hopping on the treadmill.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's not as simple as just drive there.
Yes. It's and what's even worse is that I'm staring at it. Because in my building, right? Like I'm right here. My gym, we have our own gym. It's right there. All I have to do is cross the street. It's right. I'm staring at it, coach. I'm staring at it. And it's still very difficult to do it.
Yeah. So there's everyone's coaching journey is a little different. I don't want to go
Yeah.
too deep into the coaching journey,
Oh, it's
but
fine.
it can be focusing on, the vision is being healthy.
Yeah.
There's something about the physical exercise that feels really good for your body. So is
Mm-hmm.
it doing it in a different way till you feel like your skills are ready to go to the gym?
All right.
Or could it be simple as, okay, you know what? I put my shoes on and I walk by that door. I don't go into the gym. I just keep walking by that door every day for 1 week. The next day, I go in, ask to see the weights, come back out, and slowly, rather than I'm about to do a 45-minute hit workout, um,
Yeah.
I'm just getting used to just going over there right now. And
Sure.
there's a million other pathways that you could do, but that's where the flexibility comes in. Is sometimes we get overly locked into something specific that the other pathways that will keep bringing us to that specific thing. It's not giving up on it by any
Mm-hmm.
means, but allowing some detours, some winds. So it
Right.
feels,
Right.
rather than that uphill battle, it feels a little bit more like a walkway.
Yeah.
Um, allowing yourself to get creative and say like anything is a good step.
Yeah.
Anything.
You oversee a whole slew of coaches at Shimmer. So I find it really interesting that Shimmer has so many coaches because I feel like I mean, ADHD is a spectrum, so there's so many different types of things that people struggle with when it comes to ADHD. How do you keep your team up to date on just like everything ADHD? Because I feel like because of the growth of the conversation
Mhm.
surrounding ADHD and the more research that is done and so on and so forth, there's so much more information, so much more things that we're learning about ADHD every single day. How do you keep your team up to date on just everything ADHD so that they're as prepared as possible to have these conversations with new people that are coming in? Because and the reason I ask is, there's a lot of people that are getting late diagnosis ADHDs. I'm one of them. I was diagnosed when I was 35, and there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that was diagnosed at 50 and 60, and one person even 70 years old getting diagnosed later in life. So for these new people that come in with these new experiences, how do you keep your team up to date on just everything ADHD?
Yeah, so I first want to just like give credit to the coaches of, so we do not do the initial training of our coaches. We're only hiring like the top. I think the last time we ran the numbers, only 3.7% of coaches who apply will be offered a position. So we're bringing in incredible talent from the start that have a foundational background in what ADHD coaching is, what is good coaching methodology, what are great frameworks and models. So I first just want to say a huge shout out to all of our really talented coaches that make it very easy to do the job that I do. But like you said, the conversation is changing. And part of being a talented ADHD coach means keeping up with those conversations. You don't settle into what I learned 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even 1 year ago. But how do I stay up to date to make sure if a client has a question, I'm able to help navigate that, be able to answer it, or help them connect to the right resources? Should it be something like more therapeutic or something maybe more related to HR in the workplace? But there are several things, and not to go too much into the Shimmer ecosystem, which I know not
No,
everyone
do it.
wants to
Do
dive
it.
into. We have a really active Slack community, which I think is beautiful of the fact coaches can talk to each other on a daily basis. They post the trainings that they're in, podcasts that they're listening to, books that they recommend. Our chief coaching psychologist will also put book recommendations in there, things that she's finding. I'll post the newest studies. She'll post studies. And when we do that, we do pull out the insights of what does this mean for our coaching practice, help make it digestible. Most of our coaches will go read the whole study, but nonetheless, we try to make it very friendly for everyone.
That's fair.
So when it comes to the science piece, it's embedded in everything that we do.
Right.
And then we also have monthly trainings with the coaches. Our quarterly town halls are also ran by our principal coaching psychologist who will run a training at those times. So those are some of the training elements that we have of where we're getting exposure. And then we also have weekly roundtables where coaches can come talk about things that they're seeing in sessions, talk about skills that they're trying to work on. I'm there to support them on that development. So, okay, how can we bring this better into the session? What can we be doing differently? And when you have that sense of community of we have really talented coaches all together in one room every week talking about their approach, how they strategize on something, you get really incredible conversations.
Sure. You've personally even trained at some esteemed programs to get the knowledge that you have. So you've been in the game for a while when it comes to ADHD. How much has it changed since you first started learning about it? Because I feel like even in the short time that I've been a content creator, sort of, telling people my ADHD journey, and it's only been 2-3 years in that regard, and I feel like just in the 2-3 years that I've been doing this, the conversation has changed so much, and there's so many people that are just talking about it now. You've been doing this for a while now. How much have you seen change during your time frame, uh, you know, uh, coaching ADHD?
A lot has changed. And I think
Yeah.
one of the biggest things is the cultural component of
Mm,
people talking about it differently rather than it being in the shadows of I don't want anyone to know I have ADHD. A lot of people are trying to have conversations of how do I tell people about my ADHD? How do
right.
I have better communication with those in my support systems? And we're seeing a lot of support systems that are starting to become more proactive of, well, what do I do to support my neurodivergent loved ones or my
Yeah.
colleagues or my friends? Rather than it just being this one-sided, I have to focus on my self-advocacy, which is a big component of knowing yourself, knowing your needs. It's also society starting to think, well, maybe it shouldn't just be on them. Maybe this needs to be something that's more of a movement. And we're seeing it across the board, not just in ADHD, but with other diagnoses, other neurotypes of people feeling more comfortable talking about it and sharing what good collaboration looks like to make everyone
Right.
successful.
Right, right. And was there ever a moment in your coaching career, like when you first got started, where you're like, oh yeah, this is where I want to be. This is what I want to do. This is like, was there like, when did you realize that this is exactly the route that you've wanted to take?
I wish there was one really big moment, but it's a lot of little moments along
Yeah.
the way where it
Hmm.
just gets reinforced where you're like, this is it. Like, I
Yeah.
can't imagine doing anything different. It can
Yeah.
be big milestones where, one of my coachees has, graduated from their master's program, and you're like,
Mhm.
wow, they're getting their dream job. This is incredible.
Mhm.
It can be one of my coaches choosing to leave a job. They're like, you know what? I didn't like that environment. I'm going to find something better for me. And this is like really empowering conversation happening.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
it can also be when you start seeing training coming together, because in many ways, like, the learning system is fragmented for coaches. Of you have to
Right.
be pulling from different disciplines, you have to be pulling from different courses, getting exposure to a lot of different um, options and approaches for coaching.
Mhm.
And then you start seeing those blend together in this really cool way of, oh, I can see how this relates to that and this relates to that. And all of a sudden there's like the synergy of information, and you're like,
Right.
I can do something with that. And those are also really exciting moments where you're like,
Yeah.
now I'm thinking about it in this new way. I get to talk to other coaches about it. What do they think about it? And then it feels like you're part of the progression,
Mhm.
is because we're all synthesizing information together. You become a part of something new. And I
Right.
think that's when it's like, okay, I'm not just applying information, which like, it is an application. Coaching is an application of coaching psychology, but it's also, where is this field going and how am I a part of that conversation? And
Mhm.
that's very fun to be a part of.
Yeah, yeah. Do you feel as though ADHD is overdiagnosed? The reason I ask is because there's sometimes, I'll put out content talking about, my ADHD journey, or people will be sharing their ADHD journey. And a lot of times there's going to be people that are like, oh, ADHD is just a trend, oh, everybody has ADHD now, blah, 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 like all that kind of stuff. And they'll say that ADHD is just overdiagnosed, or that people are being diagnosed with ADHD simply because they want to get medicine and things like that. And it bothers me because I feel like it kind of invalidates people's journey a little bit. But I'm curious what you think. Do you feel that ADHD is diagnosed? And if not, why do you think people feel that way?
I do not think ADHD is overdiagnosed. We'll start with that. I think
Yeah.
historically it has been wildly underdiagnosed.
Hmm.
The statistics are showing that maybe about 1 in 5 people are neurodivergent, but it's estimated that could be even higher. And ADHD is one of the more predominant ones. And I think the reason people conceive it that way is, one, it's a new conversation. I think it's one of those things that when a concept comes around, a lot of people start talking about it, as they should. A lot of people are starting to go through, a kind of unpacking of like, oh, I'm diagnosed later in life. What does that mean? What could have been different if someone had given me different supports, if I had known, if I had this information? Um, and people are feeling more comfortable talking about it. I think,
Right.
again, that cultural piece is of a lot of times when people are going through something more transformative. Um, it's been really personal. People haven't felt like they had a support system to talk to, or in the age of the internet, could connect to an
Mhm.
entire community to actually say, like, I know what that experience is like as well.
Right.
I think we all know with tech is always changing. Our ability to
Mhm.
connect with others is changing. So 20 years ago, the ability to connect with community was incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Maybe you could find some chat rooms online, but it's not really the
Yes.
same thing as doing the video calling. Um,
Yes.
it's maybe you could find a local center nearby, but that's not
Mhm.
accessible for everyone to drive to make time for. But now we have something instantaneous where people can come together, start talking about their story, and that amplifies. And that doesn't mean it's overdiagnosed. It just means it's being seen now.
Right. Right. There's a lot of times, and I'll see online, a lot of things will kind of have like this one size fits all solution. Like some advice will be like, just use a planner or just set a reminder, just kind of like this, that'll fix everything kind of thing. Uh, I just want to hear it from a coach. There's no such thing as a one size fits all solution to ADHD, right? It's a very complicated thing with that uh that has nuance to it, and that's where the coaches come into play. Am I
Mhm.
correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
categorically is no perfect system that if everyone puts it in,
Yeah.
everyone's good. Everybody in the world should have the system. That's not how it works. Like you said, it is very nuanced. Are there tools and systems that work well for most people? Absolutely. Because when it comes with reminders, that's part of externalizing time. Rather than having to constantly be checking the clock that 20 minutes has passed, we can go ahead and offload that.
Right.
Tech is going to take care of that. I'm going to know in 20 minutes passed. Great tool. Do I talk about reminders with my clients? Yes. Are there specific ways we're utilizing reminders? Yes. So not all reminders are made equally for each person. We're also looking at desensitization to timers. You can't overuse timers to where you just start snoozing them. You're not using them.
Yes.
The app push notifications just start
Yeah.
getting pushed away. It happens. So it has to be done very deliberately, intentionally, and reflectively. So like you said, not one size fits all. Do I talk about it? Yes. Is it a bit of an eye roll? Yes, but it is an important part of offloading the cognitive demand.
Right, right. I feel like there's this like common belief that ADHDers can't be successful without like strict discipline or rigid routines. What's your take on that?
I think that's a great question because routines are helpful in the sense that it reduces the amount of decision making.
Hmm.
So the amount of effort you need to go throughout your day gets reduced because, okay, I'm following the system. I know what to do. I'm taking the guesswork out of it. Can be a great anchor. But there's rigidity of like, do I have to have this to be successful? And no, it depends on what your life demands are. It depends on the system that you're working within. If you're in an organization that has very specific expectations and they're not super accommodation friendly, where it's like, these are the working hours, this is how things get done, this is the system, then it becomes a question of, okay, is this a system that works for me? Am I going to be able to adopt different strategies to fit in it? Am I better in a different working environment? So some of it is, where am I at? What are the expectations of that's going to determine success? And sometimes there is more flexibility where I don't need this type of rigid structure in order to be successful, and this is going to work for me. I see both in my conversations. It really depends on what your demands are and what's going to work for you.
Right. I'm glad you brought up the decision aspect of it because I don't think people understand how real decision fatigue is. It's very, very real. Like I feel like sometimes every little choice can feel exhausting sometimes. And actually, I'll give you the perfect example. I was in a restaurant. I was at Texas Roadhouse the other day with my mom and my girlfriend, and we're sitting there and my girlfriend always makes fun of me for this, or she always gives me a look, I should say, because I'll look at the menu and then I'll just close it. Like I won't like be scroll. I just won't scroll through, and she'll be like, "What are you getting?" And I'll be like, "I don't know. I'll just decide when the waiter gets here." I'll just have like this general idea of what I could want, and then I'll just close the menu because like I don't want to just I get so overwhelmed by choices sometimes that I'll literally just be like, I'll just kind of go with the flow kind of thing. So decision fatigue is definitely real. It's definitely exhausting. For anybody that's out there that uh, has trouble managing decision fatigue, is there anything that they can do to kind of reduce that fatigue in their daily life?
Yeah, if it's something that you see yourself, it's a decision that seems to be coming up every day, every week. A lot of times I'll talk to my clients about creating menus, and very topical because you're just talking about being at a
Yeah.
restaurant. So I'll keep
Yeah.
it with the food one. Is like one of the most conversations I have is I have to make a decision on what to eat every day, like 3 times a day. And I don't know. There's a lot of ingredients in the house. I can make a lot of things. I just don't eat. I'll do it later. Then I'm starving at night and I just kind of go for the first thing that I can grab. And it becomes a cycle of, man, like, okay, well, I got to do it again. I got to make 3 more decisions the next day on what I'm going to eat. So, like, for example, some of my members will create like a 5 option menu for lunch. The ingredients for those 5 items are always in the house. And we categorize it by simplicity of how easy is it to make. Maybe that's like a PBJ, super simple. Or you know what, maybe it's like an Uncrustable. You just open the PBJ. Perfect. Or a 5 where it's like, okay, we're frying rice, like we're cutting up vegetables. And it's how much energy do I have that day? There's like 2, 3 options based on that energy and which one do I want?
Mhm.
And for some people that works great. Some people might be like, whoa, no, I want to make whatever I feel like every day. Feel free. That's not a prescriptive choice by any means,
Right.
but it's creating things for if there's actions that aren't super important for you to have a lot of flexibility on, really tuning into like, these are the things I know I can be successful with, and I'm just going to focus on those.
Right, right. I feel like people like listen to you talk and listen and like doing my research just on coaching in general. I feel like sometimes people assume that ADHD coaching is all about quote fixing ADHD. And I listening to you speak, listening to Chris Wang speak as well, and speaking with other coaches, I feel as though coaches they approach coaching in a way that embraces ADHD rather than trying to fight against it. Is that how you go about approaching coaching ADHD?
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Not fixing, healing, curing, nothing like that by
Yeah,
means, but we're working with.
right,
Your brain works in a particular way. The systems you've been exposed to are very much neurotypical in nature, but that's not how it has to be. And a lot of people and like a lot of studies have shown that when we have neurodiverse spaces,
right,
more things come out of it. It's a better collaboration space. We get better ideas. So we don't want to get rid of any of that. And not to say that neurodiversity conversations are all about what's most productive for society. Everyone has the right to be able to just live a good life on their own outside of what productivity looks like. But it is a natural variation in the brain. And it's something that comes with great strengths. It can come with some challenges. But there's no conversation about treating it. And I know for
right.
some people, even the term ADHD management can feel a
Hmm.
little off-putting of like, oh, well, it has to be something controlled, then I'm wrangling it. So when we're talking about ADHD management, we're not necessarily talking about containing it. It's
Right.
talking about looking at a high level overview of like, okay, what am I managing? What are my systems in place to work with my ADHD? So that's one of those nuances of understanding when ADHD management is said. What does that mean? And it is a strength based approach. It's
Right.
not limiting yourself by any means or shoving it in a corner, but taking a holistic look at what does it mean for me to have ADHD.
Right. I want to go through some common struggles that I find adults with ADHD go through, including myself. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to throw some struggles your way, and if you can give
Okay.
some tips and tricks on on how to fix our life, how to handle our life, Coach. The first one is time blindness. A lot of people talk about how with ADHD struggle with time blindness. How can people approach managing time in an effective way if they struggle with ADHD?
Yeah. So the first thing, and I want to say there is no magic system. So what
Hmm.
I'm about to say is not like I got it. Here are the biggest secrets. But it's about understanding when it's happening. Are there certain tasks that you notice you tend to get lost in more easily? Are there certain times of day that are a little bit harder to stay on top of? Context makes a difference because then you're able to plan for it more accordingly. And some of the things that I talk to my clients about will be either like a ramp up. So I'm about to do this activity that I know time starts flying, or in the mornings, I have a really hard time concentrating. So what does the ramp up look like to make sure I have systems in place that will help me stay with time? And yes, that can include reminders. I know it's one of those things. There are more things than just that. You can actually get really creative. One of my clients, which I think that's the beauty of coaching. I'm not always saying like, here's the tool. That's not the case. One of my clients has this like very elaborate like light fixture that changes color over time. And it indicates with like transitions, it indicates like you're about to leave a task. It changes to orange when a meeting's coming up. And so like they use colors all around them.
That's cool.
It's it's so beautiful. And it's one of those things
Yeah.
where it's like, yeah, you know, an alarm on your phone, not that exciting. This color that when it changes, they're like amazed with their office is very fun for them. So
Oh
it can't
wow.
so be creative. Be creative. That's why there's no one system is colors work great for them. Other clients, it's the audio. The phone works great. That's perfect for them. But so we have an off ramp or an on ramp of this is going to be my system for this period of time, and then an off ramp. So okay, I might get lost. Say my systems don't work for me. What's going to help me exit out of this time period? And one of the things is like a hard stop. So we know that sometimes when you have an obligation or accountability to someone else, it's a lot easier to walk away from a task rather than it's like, well, I get to pick if it's over.
Right.
So scheduling an appointment, a phone call with a friend, a check-in, something that can help you pull yourself away from those tasks. So thinking about it as transition pieces once you know a little bit more about the context.
I love oh my gosh. I might have to steal that light idea. I think that's so cool. I
Pretty
think
cool.
that's
Pretty
really
cool.
cool. I love that. Oh my
I
gosh.
don't know how they created it. I could never, but it worked for them. And that's like
That's
the fun
so
thing is
cool.
like
Yeah.
be playful.
I'm gonna have to look into that. Thank you for sharing that. Let's talk about dopamine hacking. What's a way that people can, I guess, turn quote unquote boring tasks into something that's a little bit more friendly for them?
So I'm actually going to rewind slightly.
Yeah.
So there is the task itself, but there's
Hmm.
also, again, I hate to say an on ramp, but life has
Hmm.
on ramps. We're always
Yes.
transitioning.
Yes. Hmm.
It's just making sure you're also in a space for your neurons to be firing.
Hmm.
So sometimes it's the task, but it's also like talking about like how much energy do I have? Did I sleep
Right.
well? Did I recently eat? Do I need to exercise? Do I need to drink water? And that's not to say that these lifestyle factors are the cause for being unable to activate into the task. That's not the case by any means, but there's that biological basis of first, let me make sure that my body's in the best position to be able to do the task.
Hmm.
And then if I still need support, what am I going to do to tweak that task? So that's where we see a lot of conversations around like gamification or novelty. And I'm suspicious that most of your audience is familiar with gamification, but just a quick sentence for anyone that might be a newcomer to the term. It's actually making something more challenging, playful. It's turning something into a sport or game, hence gamification. Rather than doing it for the outcome's sake, it's can I beat the clock? Can I beat my friend at doing it? Do I earn a reward? Can I do it faster than I did it the last time? All these things that are just more fun than doing the task itself.
Right.
Um, so when it comes to dopamine hacking, sometimes I feel like a hack feels like, oh, it's always going to work. But again, like
Right.
you think it's fun and what I think is fun are two
Right.
different things.
Right.
And what Chris thinks is fun is another thing in itself as well. So it is that internal conversation of like, what do I really like to do? Like, what's the most fun I've had in the past week? And what made that fun for me? And when
Hmm.
you're starting to learn your best experiences, applying that. So same thing with like work projects where you're like, oh, I do not like working on portfolios. I do not like putting together a presentation. What's the most fun I've had in my job in the past month? What made me had fun with that? What can
Right.
I bring into this new project? So it can't be gamification, absolutely, but it's also just looking at like your own independent version of what fun and interest is, and then sprinkling that in throughout your life.
Right. What's your view on body doubling? Like, have you seen that make? Because I like you were just talking about like one of the methods that you're talking about was using other people kind of like as a inspiration to keep yourself going on certain tasks. What's your view on body doubling?
Quite frankly, I'm a little biased because I run body doubling sessions on a weekly
Oh, there
basis.
we go. So I know how you feel. I know how you feel about it.
I find them to be quite helpful, and so do
Yeah.
the members that join those calls. And there's, a couple different reasons behind it. I think people hear body doubling and they're like, well, what's the science behind that? This seems kind of sketchy. What do you mean you're just with a bunch of people? I completely understand that. But when we're looking at different theories, so like with self-determination theory, one of the components of that is relatedness, is that you feel like someone else understands your choices, is kind of there with you. There's community sense. We know those are really important for progressing in goals. And body doubling is a way of doing that. You don't have to be doing the exact same thing, but it's just knowing that someone's witnessing my effort. They can tell that I'm trying. There's a coach in the well, I'm the coach in those calls. So if you get stuck, there's someone there to help you through it if you need an extra boost. But it's just showing up for yourself and letting other people
Right.
see that you're showing up for yourself too. And then there's accountability to someone else because, well, I know my friend really wants someone to be there, witness their effort. Well, I want to show up for them in that way because sometimes it's easier to be someone else's good support than
Yeah.
find your own support. So now we have the synergy happening again of like, okay, we
Right.
can be that for each other. And I can give you like this gift of my presence and you give me the gift of yours. And together we're moving forward.
Right.
And that's a very cool thing. So
Tell
all
me
of
how
that.
you really feel about body doubling, coach. Tell me how you really feel. I feel like
Okay. It's okay. No, it's like you're good. If not,
no, I love body doubling. What stinks though is that I'm a hella introvert, believe it or not. So sometimes I just like I want a body double, but I'm like I don't. So it's like this like whole like struggle of peopling, but not wanting to people sometimes, and it's such a battle. But that's another story for another day.
and
My
I mean, body
introverted
doubling
self.
doesn't have to just be like, okay, we have cameras on each other or
Right.
we're both in the same room and we can see each other. It
Hmm.
can also be, a phone call where both
True.
people are on mute and then every now and then you unmute and you're like, I hate folding clothes. And the other person's like, same. And then you remute and you keep it going. Or a text just saying like, hey, I'm going to go for a walk in an hour. And
Right.
that's not really body doubling. That's more accountability piece. But
Right. Right.
um, again, just hey, if it isn't for you, that's totally fine. But there are ways to do it in a way that's maybe less interactive, that lets you be a little more introverted in that. Um,
Hmm.
but it's really, again, you don't have to use every tool, and not every tool is meant to be used
Yeah.
for every person. The cool thing is that there's just tons of them.
There's so many different ways. There's no one
Everybody different.
route to to help to like managing your ADHD, which I think is it's a beautiful thing because there's so many different ways that you can go about approaching it. And that like I'm friends with a lot of ADHD content creators that are out there, and just to hear their stories and to hear how they're managing it and hear them sharing their stories, you just learn how many different journeys people are on, and the
Yeah.
way that they go about managing in a healthy way it's a truly beautiful thing. And I'm glad that we're having these conversations so that people can understand that, like, truly, I know it's a cliche thing to say, but really, you are not alone when it comes to your ADHD journey and your ADHD struggles. Like, you are truly not alone. There are people out there that can probably relate to what you're going through, and that's a really good thing. Coach, I have a couple more questions for you, just to kind of wrap it up. But I want to thank you just for your insight here because, I mean, I know my audience is going to get a lot from this. And I know that they're going to appreciate this very much. So I just want to thank you in advance for dropping some knowledge on all of us today. I really do appreciate it. Like it really does mean a lot. And I know that there's somebody listening right now that is going to affect them in a positive way. So thank you so much for your insight here. Um, for that one person that might be listening, um, or anybody honestly, what's one like small, I guess, change that an ADHDer can make today that you feel would have a big impact on the rest of their day?
That's quite the question. Um,
Solve all of this for us right now, coach.
I would say it's referencing something I said earlier about
Yeah.
the energy management
Mhm.
of. And I think there's going to be two parts to this answer. The first
Yeah.
is that because energy fluctuates, kind of thinking of it as a dial. Some people do like red, yellow, green for energy. Is there are different versions of the same action. So allowing yourself to kind of meet yourself where you're at, if this is what I can do, allow yourself to scale back on those like red, low energy days. There's still
Mhm.
something that you can do. Give yourself permission to try the smaller version of it. I know it can be so hard with the all or nothing thinking or any
Yeah.
perfectionism that comes in of why do it at all.
Mhm.
Trying to challenge that of, okay, well, let me give it a week of trying these like little baby steps, and then I'll make my judgment on whether or not that was actually worth my time. Let yourself
Right.
experiment. And then the second piece is with energy management, kind of going throughout your day, thinking of it like a battery of when we're making decisions, when there's, cognitive load that you're trying to carry around, when you're trying to meet demands. Those are all things that are draining, but we have to keep filling up the battery. And it can be, I hear a lot of conversations where people feel like, well, I can't rest because I didn't get XYZ done, or I'm falling behind. So I feel guilty when I do something for myself. Those are all things that are necessary to keep going. Otherwise, you're going to approach burnout and you might find some tasks drain your energy and give it a boost. So Taking a shower, for example, you might not want to do it, but you might feel really good afterwards. Maybe put some tunes in. Trying to think of yourself in the same way is energy is not limitless. Like I said, with those foundational pieces of like exercise, sleep, water, our body needs the same amount of care. So when you're thinking about how am I going to overcome all these things, also you are a person. So thinking about the fact of how do I keep myself going and nourishing myself is so important. I know that's not just like one thing, but I think those are mindsets that become really, really important because then you become resilient.
Absolutely. For anybody that is listening that might feel overwhelmed by their ADHD, maybe they haven't started their coaching journey yet. Maybe they haven't spoken with a coach yet, haven't spoken with a therapist, haven't spoken, like this is all new to them, and they're not sure where to begin or what to do. What is one step that they can take towards, I guess, continuing their ADHD journey or beginning, I should say, their ADHD journey in a healthy way?
Yeah. So I always like to say is there's so much to learn about ADHD. I know when you're first getting your diagnosis or when you maybe first have thought, well, that sounds like me. It can be very easy to go into the rabbit hole and have to know everything at once.
Yeah.
It will come with time. The first thing is about, what is important to knowing more for me. What's really important about this, kind of knowing that piece of why do I want to know more, and then digging in there, but also thinking about, okay, the first conversations can be like, I have to fix everything. There's a lot of struggles. Also trying to zoom out and think, okay, well, what's been going well for me? Or what is this? How did the pieces come together for this thing I was really good at? Making sure that it doesn't just become a deficit conversation of these are all the things that aren't going well or are struggles, but at the beginning, also start thinking about strengths. It doesn't have to be this negative leaning thing. It can feel like that at first because generally when you're starting to hear something relates to you, you're thinking about struggles, but let yourself also have those strength-based conversations.
Right. I appreciate you more than you realize, Coach Alex. Really, honestly, thank you for your insight. And if anybody's listening right now, that's like, okay, I like this person. I wanna learn more about Shimmer ADHD coaching, all of that. I'm going to include a link to Shimmer in the description of this podcast. And I actually think, let me check. I actually think I got a little code for people that I can that I'll send over to people as well that will let me look this up real quick because I think it'll be really cool. I'll put it in the description of this podcast. But Chris Wang gave us a little discount for anybody that's listening right now that wants to get more information about Shimmer ADHD coaching. So just click the link in the description of this podcast and it will take you straight there and all of that. So with that said, Coach Alex, thank you so much for your time and your insight. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great. Hopefully there's something useful in here for someone that was listening.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Hopefully everyone had a good time listening the past 50 minutes of me talking, but it's been wonderful. And thank you for you had great questions and I loved how much you shared about your own journey as well. And
I appreciate that.
I'm
Thank you
back
for
anytime.
yeah, I told Chris she's stuck with me now and you are too. So you're stuck with me. So now it's official. You have to come back and drop some more knowledge and all of that.
I'll be here tomorrow.
I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks everybody for listening. Thank you for watching.
And that's a wrap on this week's episode of the Vibe with Kai podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you found a little bit of comfort in today's episode, and I hope that you're walking away with a little bit of encouragement, and I hope that you laughed a little bit along the way. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like and subscribe and leave a review. Let me know what you thought of the episode. I really want to hear your voice. I want to hear your story. I want to hear all about your journey. Let's keep the conversation going. Make sure you follow me on all of your favorite social media platforms. Follow me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever it may be, at The Vibe with Kai for more tips, more laughs, and more real talk. Remember, my friends, you are not alone on this journey. We are in this together. And until next time, stay kind to yourself, embrace the journey, and keep vibing. I'll catch you next time. Much love. Good vibes.